Hello and welcome to a new episode of Pat's Chat. Third week of MCO, the Movement Control Order here in Malaysia. Still stuck at home, but you can see my nice background of KL city. Today, someone of KL is joining me. Leadership and communication coach and a very fast racing star on social media. Also due to her awesome podcast, Phing. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Phing. Thank you very much for joining me. How are you today?
Good, thank you. Thank you for the very kind invitation.
Yeah, I came across your profile in LinkedIn because you're really disruptive there. I can see you hustling a lot everywhere. And as I said, the podcast is really, really awesome. We come back to that a little bit later. First of all, as always, I would like to know more about you, who you are, and where you grow up, and if you were a successful student or not.
Interesting. And thanks for the question. I feel like this is the first time after doing so many podcast interviews that this got asked. So I am born and raised in Penang, Malaysia. So I did most of my education in Penang itself, and my final year of my accountancy degree, where I did ACCA, I moved to KL, spent a year in KL, and I've got all my education done, moved back to Penang. Started working in a pretty small accounting firm because that time it was 2008, the whole recession thing. So pretty much, we just went for whatever that was available. And gradually from then on, I moved to Singapore to join Ernst & Young, which is one of the big four accountancy firms. Mm-hmm. So in there, I was pretty much doing things that auditors do, right? Financial statement review, but I think what was quite interesting is that I got into the space of compliance, so financial services compliance, right? Really reviewing gaps, processes, regulations, and whatnot. Then after that, because personally I love travel, so there was a position that opened up at Visa with the internal audit, internal controls team, and I thought, you know what, why not? Because it's travel to the biggest cities in the world, visiting their offices, and really doing process gap reviews, which are some of the things that I was trained in and I did enjoy also. So it's pretty fun 2 years, I would say, visiting the Visa's offices in like Sydney, San Francisco, Tokyo. I went to Shanghai as well, Ho Chi Minh, Bangkok, KL. So it was pretty fun 2 years. Then after that, I was pretty much headhunted to join Standard Chartered Global Team. So that was the time I think the banks were paying a lot of fines in the multi-million-dollar range due to some governance framework gaps. So I was actually the pioneer team that went in to kind of take a look at the framework and pretty much redesign the whole thing. So that was what I spent my time doing at Standard Chartered for almost 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, that's corporate life.
Awesome.
That was corporate life.
So I see you come from a small island in the north of Malaysia, Penang, and then moved over KL to Singapore. That must have been a great change in your life also.
I think the 1 year spent in KL was definitely a very fruitful one because I was pretty much living on my own. Still in the comforts of university life, right? So it was kind of hectic, but pretty much in control because we had something specific to focus on, like my studies. I think for Singapore, the real transition was about the expectation level, right, for work. In business is definitely 3 to 5 times higher than what we are used to here. Let's put it that way. So I think it's quite helpful because ultimately, businesses are turning global, and this is the attitude and this is the sort of expectation that we want to have. And to me, this is the kind of the key experience that I took away, and the experience that I share with a lot of my young clients right now who are also in regional and global positions, also dealing with massive teams across different markets.
Yeah. I understand, and I think as you wrote, you visited 37 countries. That's awesome. I think that's a huge experience. Also, can you say like which place of all these 37 countries you like most?
Okay, my favorite place ever actually is Porto, which is the north of Portugal, because I love art, and especially in Porto, they have a lot of like wall paintings, like the ceramic tile paintings, which are absolutely beautiful, and they are absolutely massive. So I feel like it is a place that really the artsy, creative side of me really relish, and especially when I travel, I like to seek inspiration, especially from art. So I love visiting museums and kind of looking at architecture. And I just feel like Porto is this like burst of art wherever I go. So I really
Nice.
love Porto.
Nice, nice. I think my Portuguese friends will love to hear that. That's awesome. So, as you said, you worked as accountant, as auditor, and in governments for a bank. For most of the people, or for a lot of people, that would sound like quite boring. But I think it has its exciting parts also. But is that the reason, like, that you started your own company? That you got bored with the job, or you just wanted to figure out something new?
I think I wouldn't say it was boring. In fact, I always like to tell people that actually naturally I'm a very big picture sort of person, but the time spent in audit really drills the attention attention to detail into you, which right now I think is a very invaluable skill that I have, like being really able to spot the little things that are not right but are supposed to be right. And in fact, I think that has really helped me to do really well at Standard Chartered. So I was pretty much promoted every single year when I was in the bank, because my key role was essentially building new things, right? So it kind of combines like the key skills of like imagination, creativity, and really the nitty-gritty bits of management of actually implementing initiatives and projects. I'm sure, a lot of people know it's very easy to come out with ideas, not so easy to actually put the ideas into practice and actually get things done. So I really relish from like both sides. But I mean, I guess back to your question, what I noticed from my 10 years in corporate, and I would say pretty much, fast rising years, is that the key skills are really not so much technical stuff that one you can pick up, but I think it's the ability to really learn how to use. Number one is actually identify the soft skills that can help you to navigate people and problems, and particularly navigating people, because 90% of problems are caused by people.
I would agree
So,
with that. Yeah.
so I think having that realization is very important, and knowing that learning it does not always mean that it's in the traditional sense whereby you need to go and take a certification. Like I have not taken a certification in years, but what I've continued to harness on are like these little skills, like creating win-win relationships, like leveling up your EQ, how to manage expectations, clear thinking, getting organized, managing your time. I mean, all these are really very, very critical things. And over the years, I've seen people who got promoted very quickly, like myself. I've also seen people who got stuck, especially young people, very enthusiastic, but cannot understand why, right? They can't move upwards. I think the thing I notice is a very common theme, because they are technically very strong, very hardworking, but like in terms of these soft skills to navigate people and problems, it's quite limited. So once you can't really demonstrate that you have that ability to take the lead, then I think it's quite difficult to move upwards, because there's a lacking of leadership and management skills. So that's what actually inspired me to say, you know what, instead of helping my team, like 20 people, I want to help more people. And that's a much better way of doing that.
Oh, I see. So sharing your experience, and you're also defining like when people ask you how you find your success, right? How were you able to move this career ladder so quickly? Then you focus everything on soft skills, right? So you never mentioned that like, oh, it's because I'm a good accountant or a good auditor. It's more like, okay, what makes a good accountant or auditor is like defined by the soft skills. And I read on your profile that you have the ability to develop a high emotional intelligence and mastering soft skills. So when we come back to EQ, can you define this a little bit more for people who don't know what we define as EQ or emotional intelligence?
Yeah, I think the to me, right, it doesn't matter, what your job title is and what you're trained at, because ultimately these are things that you can pick up. So it, to me, the baseline is this: self-awareness. Do you know, how well do you know yourself? I think that's the question I like to ask. So what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What do you enjoy? What do you hate? What can you tolerate? What do you think you can get better at? What do you think you're naturally awesome at? Right? And a lot of people find it quite difficult to really dig deep because it requires a lot of self-reflection, thinking, and most of the time we're also busy, right? So emotional intelligence, number one, is really about self-awareness, and number two, understanding yourself well enough to know that when certain emotions are created in you, whether you should know what makes you angry, what creates anxiety, what gets you stressed out, what makes you really happy, joyful, and what you really enjoy doing, because that is really the first step. So I just by knowing that in yourself, it helps you to be able to identify it in someone else. So some people, what I call like tactless people, they could have made someone really angry, but they don't even recognize that, right? So I'm not sure why you're so angry with me. I didn't even do anything, and the other person's like, did you? How can you not see this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So examples like that.
Okay, and okay, it's very interesting that you speak about the self-awareness. Do you see like a difference in like the age groups, like if you talk about millennials or if you work with Gen Zs also? Do you see a difference in this behavior, like that, like one of the age group is more self-aware or one is less, or it doesn't change? It really depends on like every individual at all.
Yeah. I think self-awareness is a personal journey, to be honest, because sometimes the situations and the experiences that you have come across will sort of trigger you to say, okay, maybe I need to start thinking about this and why is this happening. But I would say this though: I think the Gen Z kids, or the students and like kind of fresh graduates that I work with, I think they at least have this ability to keep asking why. Like, why is this happening? Why do I need to do this? Why? Right? And I find that sometimes it creates a generation gap, because like the people who are, the millennials and the Gen X or the baby boomers are just not used to the question, answering the why question, right? We are more focused on like, okay, how do you do this, and what do I need to do, and so forth. So there is a bit of a communication gap, mainly due to generation. And I think if you look at Gen Z, probably the ability to create self-awareness is also higher, because they grew up in an era of technology. So whatever answers that they want, they can search for it. But there's also a flip side to that, because when you absorb a lot of information, how do you know that it's relevant for you? And how do you know if like actually you want to learn from it, or it's just like kind of being shoved to you? So I think a lot of it is more you really need to take time to reflect on kind of what you like, what do you enjoy, what do you think you're good at, not just the stuff that people tell you that you're good at.
Yeah. But in the end, all this focuses on the human, real human skills, how you call it, and also you helped your customers to get future ready skills. So what is the top skills that you consider the future skills that everyone should have?
Yeah, the key one, I always say, leadership is self-management. If you cannot manage yourself, there is no chance that you can deal with other people. No chance. No chance. Because you can't really control your environment. Like, yeah, I mean, to a certain extent you can, but you really can only work on yourself, isn't it? And I hear a lot of, because I work with a lot of young people, so obviously they are very ambitious, high performing. They always tell me, oh, I want to become a team leader, manager, director, whatever. And the question I normally ask them is like, how well are you managing yourself? Tell me what's up with your portfolio. Like, are you late for meetings? Do you do what you say and say what you do? That kind of stuff. Because if you can't even lead yourself, then what are your chances, of success of leading, 5 people, 10 people, maybe 200-300 people? Because the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. Mm.
So leading by being a role model, basically.
Are you the person that people want to work with?
Yeah.
Right. So if you can't
Correct.
answer
Yeah.
yes to that question, that means that there are some stuff that you may want to work on.
Yeah. Okay, I understand. Yeah, I understand what you mean. Besides leadership, or I mean, do you think everything comes back to leadership? I mean, that's the most important skills.
That's definitely one of the most important one. The other thing I think is listening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, deep and active listening. Because a lot of times we are very focused on answering the question, but we don't always listen. Like we listen for agreement, or whether we agree with a certain point. We listen to defend sometimes, right?
Yeah.
We listen to respond, because I have a lot of extroverted clients, and they tell me that when this person is talking, I have a lot of things I want to say already. So listening is a skill it sounds so easy, but it's quite difficult to really master it. So it's a process that requires cultivation. But I would say that it pays off massive dividends, because everything starts from listening, isn't it? So if you're at work and your
Yeah.
boss talks to your manager or even a client, you can't listen well, then how are you gonna deliver results and the outcome? Because you can spend a lot of time, but if the time is kind of not on the right things, then it's really a waste of time, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree, and basically, I agree with the listening skills. Should be one of the most important, or I consider that is it as the most important skill for leadership. Also,
Yes.
listening, which brings me like to the next topic.
Yeah.
This when we talk about introvert and extroverts.
Yeah.
So many people ask me is like, why can introverts even be leaders? And my answer is
Yeah.
always like, yeah, I think introverts can even be the better leaders than extroverts. Why? Because they have this one skill already that is developed better than the extroverts, and that is listening.
Yeah.
Of course, this is very generalizing, but would
Yeah.
you agree with that? That I mean, in the end, both introverts and extroverts can be good leaders, but maybe introverts even have an advantage in this area.
Yeah, definitely. I think, regardless of whether you're an introvert or extrovert, given the right practice and developing the right skills, we all can become good leaders. And I agree with you. I think that for introverts, listening comes a little bit more naturally, listening as well as observing. And I would even add that certain level of emotional intelligence as well, because when you're kind of being quiet, listening, observing, it's much easier to sense how the other person is feeling, whether it's a good feeling or a kind of a pretty negative feeling. But I would say that, I wouldn't categorize whether it's an introvert versus extrovert, but to me, a leader's ability, number one, is to communicate. Number two is to actually make decisions and take action. And ultimately, you need to be able to manage and monitor your team to make sure that the things are actually done as they promised. So to me, these are the four key characteristics. So definitely introverts can become very good leaders as well. I guess that sentiment comes from a lot of people think that introversion means the person is very quiet, very anxious, just socially awkward, which I quite disagree with this term. And I find, and I will say this though, a lot of people tell me I'm an ambivert. And I used to tell people that
Ambivert. Okay.
I don't believe in ambiverts, because I think that introversion and extroversion is pretty much a spectrum. So you are just kind of along the spectrum, like nobody's really 100%. And sometimes I wonder if the term ambivert came up because people think that calling themselves an introvert is like something is wrong with you. So I always tell introverts that it's okay, you can be proud of being an introvert, because it's just that people don't really understand what that means. And to me, being an introvert just means that if I'm a battery, right? After the whole day, I have a lot of activities. Once that battery goes to zero, like I need to go home, I can't deal with anymore. But for an extrovert, it's just that they can recharge the battery, right? So they're like, okay, let me just, when I talk to someone else, then the battery goes back to 100%. It's just how you recharge your energy. But I think the more general perception is that as long as you're quiet, you're awkward, that means you're an introvert, which I don't think that's true. Like, at least in my definition, it's not true.
But I think like this term, I just liked it very much. I didn't hear that before, like socially awkward, right? Or how do you say it? Social awkward?
Yeah, social awkwardness and stuff.
Social awareness, yeah, that's funny. I mean, basically, I think it will go in both directions. I mean, introvert
Yeah.
will also say like it's kind of social awkward if you have an extrovert
Mm.
that puts himself or herself
Yeah.
in the center of attention and then
Mm.
talks like the entire evening without like anyone else can say something, or if even
Yeah.
someone else says something, the guy is not listening, right? So I think it
Yeah.
goes kind of both
Mm.
direction when it is extreme. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean we have an agreement on that one. How do you work in with groups that have like really this let's say the extremes on both
Mm.
sides, like an extreme introvert and extreme extrovert? How you make sure that this group can work together and function in the end?
Yeah, I think firstly is to be able to identify who has the extroverted preferences and the
Mhm.
introverts. And I think that if you have introverts in a team meeting, you should always um, allow them to speak up, right? So if the extrovert is talking nonstop, and then you can always say, okay, thanks for your feedback. What about who and who, right? I mean, let's just give a couple of minutes for the people who have not shared their views yet, like who would like to share. So kind of give them that space so that they feel that they have the permission to not compete for for the attention. But also, I think giving space in the sense that sometimes introverts need a bit more time to kind of process their thoughts, right? They may not be able to kind of
Mhm.
give all the views during the meeting. So always be open to say, okay, if you guys have anything else you want to share, can you please, maybe drop an email or come to speak to me after, like within
Yeah.
2 days or within
Mhm.
2 hours, so that they have some time to process and really can come back with more valuable insights that maybe if you try to force it during the meeting, um, it doesn't really work for them because
Yeah.
that's kind of not how they process
Yeah.
things. Yeah, so
Absolutely.
just I guess giving space and kind of understanding how you can leverage on each
Nice.
personality strengths. Yeah.
Okay, that's an awesome hint. And as mentioned before, there are many more hints in your podcast on both
Yeah.
sides. Basically, that's
Yes.
very interesting. So you have like 4 or 5 episodes on both the introverts and extroverts. I really recommend to listen to all of those because it's gives a lot of insights. One topic we discussed a couple of times during this
Mm.
last 3 weeks, or let's say above all the last 1 week, is the situation we currently have in Malaysia, around the world, that you're
Yeah.
locked up at home. Is a situation where introverts probably feel more convenient with, and extroverts more probably are about to freak out. Is that what you see also? And what is your recommendations in the
Mm.
end to extroverts being stuck in such a situation?
Mm. I think that pretty much everybody's freaking out, if I'm honest. And I would say that for the introverts, probably the first 3 days is pretty fun. And after that, it's a bit like I would like to at least have the option to be able to go out, because that's personally how I feel. That I like to stay at home. But to say that no, you cannot leave your house, it feels like, oh no, then this is a trap. Like it's not a choice. Because I think there is a difference between having a choice and like, no, you can't do something. Um, but I think that, definitely is more hard hitting for extroverts, because I would say that in my client portfolio, right, the clients I work with is probably half and half, right? I have introverts. I also have extroverts who are texting me every day say like, I cannot deal with this anymore. I think the biggest tip is like, why not take this time for some self-reflection, right? Maybe do some personality tests and maybe some quiet time to think through, like I said, right, the skills, some of your skill gaps, or some of the challenges in your life, in business and in career, where right now, you're not kind of in a busy space outside in a meeting or in an office where you'll be constantly interrupted, but carve out that 1 hour for yourself and see how you can improve, because this situation, honestly, we don't really know how long it's going to last. You can't control your environment, but you can choose to do something for yourself, right? I always tell people, you start by identifying your skills gap and don't go around doing just generic learning, because it's just like hours watching YouTube, but you don't really know how to utilize it after. So it's
Mhm.
not going to be a good use of time. even though you will feel very productive because you're like, I'm learning, I'm watching a bunch of videos, but the next question is that like, how are you actually going to put anything into practice? If the answer is no, then like it's not a good use of time, isn't it?
Yeah. So you recommend focused learning, right? Like
Yeah.
pick one of the skills that you like to really improve, and then like get into that in a
Exactly.
deeper level also. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think current time there's a lot of online learning or e-learning. There's a lot of webinars. You mentioned that you start already your own thing, a community masterclass, and you can let us know in 2-3 sentences what it is about or what you're doing in this masterclass.
Yeah. The main reason why I started the community master classes is because I really grown on LinkedIn quite a bit in the past 90 days. So I always like the idea of like meeting people in 3D rather than just kind of like, 2D. So
Yes.
I then started two master classes. One is becoming future ready in the digital world. So I've been telling people that the new world is now. So why not get ready? So we talked about like some of the human skills gap that you can improve, like I shared earlier. And the other thing is really improving your online presence. So how you can improve your LinkedIn profile and make it more appealing and so forth. So these are, actually I got this idea because a lot of people have been sending me DMs asking questions related to this. So I thought, you know what, why not just do a community class and more people can come and really benefit from it. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. How can people join or how?
Yeah, so firstly, obviously connect with me on LinkedIn. I normally post upcoming events, or you can go to my website www.gotaphing.com, and then I do have like the latest dates there also.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, and we'll share it also like in the description and in the subtitles of these videos, of course. Very interesting. Thank you very much for sharing all these insights and ideas. Maybe if we come to an end of this chat, maybe your number one tip for people at home besides learning. I mean, what to do, how to do, or maybe easier to let us know or share like what you do, how you spend your day to make sure that in the end you stay productive, active and productive.
Well, I would say stop consuming and start creating.
You mean
share
less?
share
Yeah.
something.
Okay.
Because I mean, everyone is very busy learning, right? But like, I want to see more sharing. I want to see more people sharing about what they have learned, and if it's going to be helpful to your individual community, why not, right? Because we can all benefit from one another. So start creating, even if it's like a simple post or sharing a link or to an interesting article that you discovered. Like, why not? I like to see those. Like, I like to read those. So I really look forward to that.
Yeah, sure. Me too. The more people share, the more we can learn from their experience.
Yeah.
As I learned today a lot from you, also really appreciate it. Appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being on this show.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, and thanks to you for watching. I hope you like this episode, and stay tuned for the next one. Stay safe, and see you soon.
Every corner of the world is experiencing disruptions, but not for Bigot, for bringing data skills and knowledge to you. Hence from leading regional data science show and now international live business virtual event right at your fingertips. Find out more about the future. Bigot 2020, the 8th annual data science show on 22nd to 23rd September 2020.